My dear friends, listen to me carefully. Before this week comes to an end, something is about to happen in your life that you did not expect. Not because you earned it, not because you planned it, but because God, in His mercy, has decided to step into your situation. I don't know who I'm speaking to tonight, but there's someone here. You've been praying, you've been waiting, you've been wondering if God has forgotten you. You've cried in silence, you've carried burdens no one else could see, and you're tired. Oh yes, you're tired. But I came with a message straight from heaven. God has not forgotten you. In fact, He's been working behind the scenes all along. The Bible says in Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, not plans to harm you, but to give you hope and a future." And I declare to you tonight, before this week ends, God is going to surprise you. It may not come the way you expect. It may not look the way you imagined. But when God moves, He moves suddenly, powerfully, and unmistakably. So don't give up now. Don't lose your faith at the edge of your miracle, because what you've been waiting for, what you've been praying for, may be closer than you think. There are moments in life when everything feels quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you wonder if anything is happening at all. You pray, but there's no immediate answer. You hope, but nothing seems to change. You look around, and it feels like everyone else is moving forward while you are standing still. And in that stillness, the enemy begins to whisper, "Nothing is happening. God has forgotten you." But that is not the truth. You see, God does some of His greatest work in silence. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean there is no activity. Just because you cannot hear His voice clearly does not mean He has stopped speaking. There is a divine process taking place behind the scenes, beyond your understanding, beyond your vision. God is working in ways you cannot trace, arranging things you cannot yet see, preparing blessings that have not yet arrived. Think about a seed planted in the ground. When it is first buried beneath the soil, it looks like nothing is happening. There is no visible growth, no sign of life breaking through the surface. If you judge the process too early, you might think the seed is dead. But beneath that soil, something powerful is taking place. Roots are forming, strength is building, life is developing in the hidden place, and in the right time, that seed will break through the ground and reveal what was happening all along. That's how God works in your life. While you are waiting, while you are wondering, while you are questioning, He is developing something deep within you. He is strengthening your faith, shaping your character, aligning circumstances, and preparing the right moment for everything to come together. What feels like delay is often divine preparation. Many people want God to move quickly, instantly, visibly. But God is not in a hurry like we are. He sees the full picture. He knows what needs to happen before your blessing arrives. He knows what must be removed, what must be added, and what must be changed within you so that when the blessing comes, you are ready to receive it. And sometimes the silence is actually protection. If God answered every prayer immediately, you might walk into situations you are not prepared for. You might receive things that could harm you instead of help you. But because He loves you, He works patiently, carefully, perfectly. The truth is, God has not been absent in your silence. He has been present in ways you did not recognize. Every closed door, every delay, every unexpected turn, it was not random. It was part of a greater plan being carefully orchestrated. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize that even in your darkest moments, even in your quietest seasons, God was guiding you step by step. He was positioning you for something greater than you imagined. And here is what you must understand. Silence does not mean inactivity. Heaven is never idle. God is never asleep. He is always working, even when everything around you feels still. His timing is precise, His plan is perfect, and His power is unstoppable. So instead of losing faith in the silence, learn to trust Him in it. Instead of assuming nothing is happening, believe that everything is being prepared. Hold on to your faith, even when your feelings tell you otherwise, because suddenly, yes, suddenly, what God has been working on in secret will be revealed in the open. What has been developing beneath the surface will rise into your reality. And when it happens, it will not feel random. It will feel like a divine moment, a perfect alignment, a powerful reminder that God was with you all along. So don't despise the silence. Don't run from it. Don't lose hope in it, because the same God who works in the light is also working in the dark. The same God who speaks loudly also moves quietly, and before you know it, the silence will break, and what God has been preparing for you will come forth in a way that only He could have done. There are people listening to this right now who feel discouraged, not because they don't believe in God, but because they have been waiting for something that has not yet happened. You prayed, you trusted, you believed with all your heart, and still nothing seems to have changed. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and now you're quietly asking yourself, is it ever going to happen for me? That question doesn't come from rebellion. It comes from weariness. But you must understand something that can change your entire perspective. Just because it hasn't happened yet does not mean it won't happen. Delay is one of the most misunderstood parts of God's plan. We often interpret delay as rejection, as if God has said no, when in reality He is saying not yet. And there is a big difference between those two. You see, God's timing is not random, and it is not careless. It is intentional, precise, and perfectly aligned with a bigger picture that you cannot fully see. If He gave you everything the moment you asked for it, you might step into situations you are not ready for, or receive blessings that you are not prepared to handle. What feels like a delay is often God's way of preparing you, strengthening you, and aligning everything so that when the answer comes, it comes at the right time, in the right way. Think about the story of Joseph. He had a dream from God, a powerful promise about his future. But after that dream, his life didn't immediately get better. In fact, it got harder. He was betrayed, sold, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. If Joseph had judged God's promise based on his circumstances, he might have believed that the dream would never come true. But what looked like denial was actually divine delay. Every step, every hardship, every waiting season was preparing him for the position he would eventually step into. And when the time came, it happened exactly as God had planned. That same principle applies to your life. The door that hasn't opened yet, the opportunity that hasn't appeared, the breakthrough that feels just out of reach, none of it means that God has said no. It simply means the timing is not complete yet. There are pieces still being put together. There are things still being arranged that you cannot see. Sometimes the delay is about preparation within you. God is building your patience, your endurance, your character. He is teaching you to trust Him, not just when things are going well, but when things are uncertain. Because if you can trust Him in the waiting, you will be able to handle the blessing when it arrives. Other times, the delay is about preparation around you. There are people who need to be in the right place, circumstances that need to shift, doors that need to close before the right one can open. What feels slow to you is actually God making sure everything aligns perfectly. And let's be honest, waiting is not easy. It stretches your faith. It tests your patience. It challenges your understanding. There are moments when you feel like giving up, like settling for less, like walking away from the very thing you once believed in. But those are the moments when your faith matters the most. Because faith is not just believing when everything is happening quickly. Faith is believing when nothing seems to be happening at all. Faith is holding on when you don't have visible proof. Faith is trusting that God's not yet is still part of His promise. You must resist the temptation to interpret delay as denial. Do not let your emotions rewrite what God has already spoken. Do not let time convince you that the promise has expired. God does not operate on your schedule, but He is never late. He knows exactly when to move, exactly when to open the door, exactly when to release the blessing, and when it happens, you will realize that the timing was not wrong. It was perfect. You will see that if it had come earlier, you might not have been ready. If it had come later, you might have missed it. But because God is precise, He will bring it into your life at the exact moment it needs to arrive. So hold on, keep believing, keep trusting. Even when it feels delayed, even when it feels slow, even when it feels uncertain, do not lose your faith. Because what God has promised you is still alive. It is still in motion. It is still on its way. And before you know it, what once felt delayed will suddenly become your reality, and you will understand that God was not denying you. He was preparing something far greater than you expected. There is a battle that takes place in every heart, often unseen by others, but deeply felt within. It is the quiet struggle between faith and fear. One tells you to keep believing, to hold on, to trust that God is still in control. The other whispers doubts, magnifies problems, and tries to convince you that things will never change. And if you are honest, there are moments when fear feels louder than faith. Fear has a way of speaking quickly and convincingly. It points to your circumstances and says, look at this, it's not working. It reminds you of past disappointments and says, it didn't happen before, so why would it happen now? It creates worst-case scenarios in your mind and presents them as if they are guaranteed outcomes. And the more you listen to it, the more it grows. But faith speaks differently. Faith doesn't deny reality, but it refuses to be controlled by it. Faith looks at the same situation and says, God is still able. Faith acknowledges the delay, but still believes in the promise. Faith may not have all the answers, but it chooses to trust the one who does. The challenge is that faith must be intentional. It doesn't automatically rise above fear. You have to feed it, strengthen it, and choose it daily. Because whatever voice you listen to the most will shape the direction of your life. If you constantly listen to fear, you will begin to act out of fear. You will hesitate, doubt, and even walk away from things God is trying to lead you into. But if you choose to listen to faith, even when it's quiet, it will guide you forward with confidence and hope. You see, fear wants to paralyze you. It wants to keep you stuck, questioning, second-guessing every step. It wants you to believe that you are not capable, that you are not ready, that you are not worthy. But faith reminds you that your strength does not come from yourself. It comes from God. And if God is with you, then you are not facing your situation alone. There are people who miss their moment not because God didn't provide it, but because fear convinced them not to step into it. Opportunities came, doors opened, but fear whispered, what if you fail? And instead of moving forward, they stayed where it felt safe, where it felt predictable. But staying in fear often costs more than stepping out in faith. Faith does not mean you won't feel afraid. Even the strongest believers have moments of uncertainty. The difference is that they don't allow fear to make their decisions. They feel it, but they don't follow it. They acknowledge it, but they don't surrender to it. Think about Peter stepping out of the boat. The storm was real. The wind was strong. The waves were crashing. Fear was present in that moment. But for a brief time, his faith was stronger than his fear, and he did something impossible. He walked on water. It was only when he shifted his focus, when he started paying more attention to the storm than to Jesus, that fear began to take over. That's what happens in our lives. When we focus too much on the problem, fear grows. When we focus on God, faith rises. The situation may not change immediately, but your perspective does. And that perspective determines whether you move forward or stay stuck. You have to make a decision. Which voice will you allow to lead you? Because both are speaking, but only one should be followed. Fear will always give you reasons to quit, to doubt, to give up. Faith will always give you reasons to keep going, to keep trusting, to keep believing. And here's the truth. Faith doesn't need everything to be perfect to keep moving. It just needs enough trust to take the next step. You don't have to have the entire plan figured out. You don't need to see the whole path ahead. You just need to trust God enough to move forward one step at a time. Every time you choose faith over fear, you are strengthening something within you. You are building resilience, courage, and confidence in God's ability to lead you. And over time, that choice becomes easier, not because fear disappears, but because faith becomes stronger. So when fear starts to speak, don't just listen passively. Respond with faith. Remind yourself of what God has already done. Hold on to his promises. Speak truth over your situation, even when your feelings are trying to tell you something different. Because in the end, the outcome of your journey will not be determined by the presence of fear, but by the strength of your faith. And if you allow your faith to outlast your fear, you will step into things you never thought possible, not because you were fearless, but because you trusted God more than you trusted your doubts. There are moments when God chooses to move in ways that completely disrupt your expectations, not because he is trying to confuse you, but because his ways are higher than your ways, and his plans are far beyond anything you could have designed on your own. You may have a clear idea of how your breakthrough should happen, who should be involved, what it should look like, and when it should arrive. But God is not limited to your imagination. In fact, many times he intentionally works outside of it. We like predictability. We like to feel in control. We like to map things out and say, this is how it's going to happen. But God often steps in and says, no, I'm going to do something greater, something unexpected, something that leaves no doubt that it was me. And when he does, it can catch you off guard if you're not spiritually prepared to recognize it. Think about how many times in Scripture God used unlikely people and unusual methods. Moses was not a confident speaker, yet God used him to confront Pharaoh. David was just a shepherd boy overlooked by others, yet he was chosen to be king. The miracle of provision didn't always come from obvious sources. Sometimes it came from a widow with just a little oil, or from bread multiplied in the hands of a young boy. Again and again, God demonstrated that he is not dependent on what seems logical or expected. And that same truth applies to your life. The answer you've been waiting for may not come through the door you've been staring at. It may come from a direction you didn't consider, through a person you didn't expect, at a time you didn't plan. If you become too focused on one specific outcome, you might miss the very thing God is doing right in front of you. There are people who pray for an opportunity, but when it comes, it doesn't look the way they imagined, so they hesitate, they question it, they even reject it, not realizing that God is answering their prayer in a different form. The blessing didn't disappear. It just arrived in a way they didn't recognize. You must learn to stay open to God's methods, not just his promises. It's one thing to believe that God will bless you, but it's another thing to trust how he chooses to do it. Because sometimes his process won't make sense at first. It might feel uncomfortable, unfamiliar, even inconvenient. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. God is not limited by your current connections, your current resources, or your current environment. He can create opportunities out of nothing. He can bring people into your life at the exact moment you need them. He can shift circumstances in ways that you could never predict. And when he does, it often happens in a way that makes it clear that it was not by your power, but by his. This is why you must remain spiritually alert. Don't become so locked into your own expectations that you overlook divine opportunities. Pay attention to the small changes, the unexpected conversations, the doors that open suddenly. Sometimes what seems minor at first is actually the beginning of something significant. And let's be honest, unexpected ways can feel uncomfortable. When things don't go according to your plan, it can create uncertainty. You may find yourself asking, God, what are you doing? But that question is not a sign of weak faith. It's an opportunity to deepen your trust. Because trusting God is not just about believing in the outcome, it's about believing in his process. You don't need to understand every step to trust that he is leading you. You don't need to have everything figured out to follow where he is guiding you. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come when you are willing to step into something that doesn't fully make sense yet, but you feel a sense of peace that it's where God is leading you. And when it all comes together, when you look back and see how everything unfolded, you will realize that God's way was better than your way. What seemed confusing at first will become clear. What felt uncertain will reveal its purpose. And what looked unexpected will turn out to be exactly what you needed. So don't limit God to your expectations. Don't put him in a box shaped by your own understanding. Allow him to move freely in your life, even if it means stepping outside of your comfort zone. Because the God who created the universe is more than capable of working in ways that exceed anything you could imagine. And when he does it, when the breakthrough comes from an unexpected place, when the answer arrives in an unexpected form, you will not only receive the blessing, but you will also gain a deeper understanding of who God is. A God who is creative, powerful, intentional, and always working for your good, even when you don't see it coming. There are moments in life when the weight of what you're going through feels almost unbearable. Situations that stretch you beyond your comfort, beyond your strength, beyond what you thought you could handle. You try to stay strong, you try to keep your faith, but deep inside, there are questions. Why is this happening? What did I do to deserve this? When will this end? Pain has a way of making everything feel uncertain. And in those moments, it's easy to believe that your suffering has no meaning. But you must understand something that can shift your entire perspective. Your pain is not without purpose. It may not make sense right now. It may not feel fair. But God does not waste anything in your life, not your struggles, not your tears, not even your lowest moments. Every experience, no matter how difficult, is being used to shape something within you and prepare something ahead of you. Pain has a way of doing what comfort cannot. It reveals what is inside you. It exposes your fears, your doubts, your weaknesses, but it also uncovers your strength, your resilience, and your capacity to grow. In the middle of hardship, you begin to discover parts of yourself that you never knew existed. You learn how to endure. You learn how to trust God on a deeper level. You learn how to keep going even when everything around you feels like it's falling apart. Think about how gold is refined. It is placed in intense heat, not to destroy it, but to purify it. The fire removes the impurities and reveals something more valuable than before. In the same way, the challenges you are facing are not meant to break you. They are meant to refine you. They are shaping your character, strengthening your faith, and preparing you for something greater than you can currently see. And sometimes, the very thing that causes you pain becomes the foundation of your purpose. There are people who will one day be encouraged, strengthened, and inspired by the story you are living right now. The struggle you're going through is not just about you. It's also about the lives you will impact in the future. Your testimony will carry power because it is real, because it is lived, because it came from a place of genuine hardship. But in the middle of pain, it's hard to see that bigger picture. When you're in it, all you can feel is the pressure, the frustration, the emotional weight. It's not easy to say, this has a purpose, when you're still trying to make sense of what's happening. And that's okay. Faith doesn't require you to have all the answers. It simply asks you to trust that there is a reason, even when you don't understand it. There are seasons when God allows you to go through things not to punish you, but to position you. He is aligning your life in ways that require growth, and growth often comes through discomfort. If everything stayed easy, if everything stayed predictable, you would never be stretched into the person you are meant to become. And let's be honest, no one chooses pain. No one wakes up and says, I want to go through something difficult today. But when it comes, you have a choice in how you respond to it. You can let it harden your heart, fill you with bitterness, and pull you away from God. Or you can let it deepen your faith, strengthen your spirit, and draw you closer to Him. The difference is not in the pain itself, but in what you allow it to produce within you. God sees every tear you've cried. He knows every moment you felt overwhelmed, every night you struggled to find peace, every silent battle you fought when no one else was watching. None of it has gone unnoticed. None of it has been ignored. And none of it is without meaning. Even when it feels like everything is falling apart, God is still in control. He is still working. He is still shaping your story in a way that will ultimately bring purpose out of your pain. What feels like an ending may actually be a beginning. What feels like loss may be making room for something greater. And one day, you will look back at this season, not with confusion, but with clarity. You will see how the pain changed you, how it strengthened you, how it led you to places you would have never reached otherwise. You will understand that what you went through was not pointless. It was purposeful. So don't give up in your pain. Don't lose hope in the middle of your struggle. Hold on, even when it's difficult. Trust that God is using this season for something greater than you can currently imagine, because your pain is not the end of your story. It is a chapter, a powerful, refining, shaping chapter that is leading you towards something meaningful, something purposeful, and something far greater than you can see right now. There are moments when everything in your life can change without warning. No long build-up, no gradual shift, just a sudden turn that alters everything you thought you understood. One phone call, one conversation, one unexpected opportunity, one divine moment, and nothing is the same again. That is the nature of how God often works. He may take his time preparing, arranging, and aligning things behind the scenes, but when the moment arrives, it can happen suddenly. The challenge is that many people are not ready for that kind of change. They pray for breakthrough. They ask God for something new, but deep inside, they are still holding on to old mindsets, old habits, and old fears. And when the opportunity finally comes, they hesitate, not because God didn't answer, but because they weren't prepared to step into the answer. You must understand that preparation is just as important as the promise. It's not enough to say, God bless me. You also have to ask, am I ready for the blessing I'm asking for? Because what God wants to bring into your life may require a different version of you. Stronger, wiser, more disciplined, more trusting. Think about it this way. If everything you've been praying for showed up today, would you be ready to handle it? Would you have the mindset to sustain it, the character to carry it, the faith to manage it? Or would it overwhelm you? These are not questions meant to discourage you. They are meant to prepare you. God is not just interested in giving you something. He is interested in making you someone who can handle what he gives. That's why there are seasons of growth, seasons of waiting, seasons where you feel like nothing is happening. In those moments, God is not being silent. He is shaping you. He is getting you ready for what is coming. And readiness is not just about external preparation. It's about internal alignment. It's about your attitude, your perspective, your willingness to trust God even when things don't go as expected. Because when sudden change comes, it doesn't always arrive in a comfortable way. Sometimes it stretches you. Sometimes it pushes you out of your routine. Sometimes it calls you to step into unfamiliar territory. But if you've been preparing your heart, if you've been strengthening your faith, if you've been letting God work within you, then when that moment comes, you won't shrink back. You'll step forward. There are people who miss life-changing opportunities because they were waiting for everything to feel perfect before they moved. They wanted complete clarity, complete certainty, complete comfort. But that's not how faith works. Faith often requires you to move before you have all the answers. It requires you to trust that if God is opening the door, he will also give you the strength to walk through it. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to be willing. Willing to grow, willing to change, willing to step into what God is doing, even if it feels unfamiliar. And part of being ready is letting go of what no longer belongs in your life. You cannot step into something new while holding on to everything old. Sometimes God will ask you to release certain habits, certain relationships, certain ways of thinking that are holding you back. Not to take something from you, but to make room for something better. Readiness also means staying spiritually alert, paying attention to what God is doing, even in small ways. Being sensitive to his direction, open to his leading. Because sometimes the beginning of something big looks small at first. A simple opportunity, a quiet nudge, a subtle change, and if you're not paying attention, you might overlook it. But when you are ready, when your heart is aligned, when your faith is active, you begin to recognize those moments for what they are. You begin to see that God is moving, that something is shifting, that what you've been waiting for is starting to unfold. And when it happens, when the sudden change comes, you won't be caught off guard in a negative way. You'll be ready to embrace it, ready to step into it, ready to walk in what God has prepared for you. So don't just wait for change, prepare for it. Don't just pray for breakthrough, get ready to receive it. Use this season right now to grow, to strengthen your faith, to align your life with what God is calling you into. Because the truth is, your moment can come at any time. The door can open when you least expect it. The opportunity can appear suddenly. The answer can arrive in a way you didn't see coming. And when it does, you don't want to be unprepared. You don't want to hesitate. You don't want to miss it. You want to be ready, fully ready, to step into the change, the blessing, the breakthrough that God has been preparing for you all along.